entertaining talking sports.
Well, what is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Before I get started on the video, I just want to say thank you to everybody, whether it was on my Discord, whether it was on Twitter, whether it was on my channel, who wished me a happy birthday. And just thank you in general to everybody that continues to support the channel. I can never say thank you enough for you guys watching my videos, even in the darkest of times. I say it all the time. The New York Giants I started this channel at the worst possible time for the New York Giants. I think they've won 11 games since I've been on YouTube in 2.5 seasons. So it definitely has not been easy as a New York Giants YouTuber. You know, you look at the Packers, for example, last year. They won 13 games in one season alone. It's not easy when you're losing football games. So I really do appreciate you guys continuing to stick with the channel, even through the darkest times in New York Giants football. But in this video, I really wanted to hammer home why I have so much optimism going forward for the New York Giants and why I think the New York Giants stand a very good chance to beat this Philadelphia Eagles team. Now, by no means am I coming on here and guaranteeing victory? I'm going to predict victory. I am predicting the New York Giants to win this game, but I'm not guaranteeing it. I'm not saying that we should win the game. I think the New York Giants stand a very good chance to win this game, and the main reason I feel that way, as strongly as I do, is the New York Giants, in my opinion, have started to establish an identity. And it's what I talked about going into the year, that by year's end, I wanted to be able to say, going into the 2021 season, as a fan of the New York Giants, we know the identity of the football team. We know our strengths, and we know what we need to continue to build on going forward. Going into the year, the New York Giants, over the last 2 years since I've been covering them, they haven't had an identity. There's been no balance with the offense. The defense looked completely lost. In particular, last year, it was absolutely abysmal. Last year, the New York Giants defense created 16 turnovers, or 1 turnover a game on average. So far this year, the defense in 9 contests has created 15. Or 1 less. In addition to that, last year, the New York Giants turned the ball over 33 times. So far this year, they've turned it over a decent amount, 15, but over the last 6 contests, where I think they've really started to establish their identity, they've only turned it over 8. If you go back to 2016 and include the first 3 games this year, the New York Giants turned it over 40 times, or over 2 times a contest. Completely unacceptable. And they were awful in the turnover disparity. They were minus 17 last year, and they were minus 4 over the first 3 games this year, for a total of minus 21. Well, over the last 6 games, they've been plus 4, and they're even for the year. And a lot of that has to do with the offense, and a lot of it has to do with the defense. And we'll start there. The defense has been much more aggressive. It's been much more unpredictable, and it's why the New York Giants have been able to create turnovers, and it's what has kept them in these football games. Last week, of course, it inflates the numbers. The New York Giants created 5 turnovers against Washington. You're not going to get that every week. But every single week, the New York Giants have been able to come up with turnovers. And more so after week 3, which is when I think the New York Giants have really started to establish their identity. And I think it starts up at the point of attack. The New York Giants are both run on defense and offense, have really been able to establish the run and stop the run. And we'll start on the defense with stopping the run. The Giants last year really started to show you that over the second half of the season when they brought in Leonard Williams, and it's only gotten better so far this year. The New York Giants over the last 7 contests have only allowed 100 yards on the ground as a team once. They rank 6th overall in the league. I'd be willing to bet if you looked at the last 6 games, they might be number 1. That's how dominant they've been there. So they've been able to force their opponents to throw the football, and by doing so, it's given the New York Giants more opportunities to come up with turnovers. On offense, it's been the complete reverse. The Giants, if you go back to last year, they averaged, last year in the first 3 games of this year, on average, they averaged 22 carries a game. And in those 19 contests, they only had 22 carries or more 7 times in the 19 contests. Well, over the last 6, the New York Giants have averaged 27 carries a game, and they've had 22 or more in all 6. So in the last 6 games, they only have 1 less game in which they had 22 carries or more than over the last 19. And that is what I talk about when the New York Giants are establishing an identity. They've been able to run the ball at will. Over the last 4 games, the New York Giants have had over 100 yards on the ground in all 4 of them. The last time they've had 5 games of 100 yards or more on the ground, you got to go all the way back to 2015. And it's what I talk about, and it's what I talked about going into the year with this New York Giants team. As a matter of fact, it was one of my bold predictions. I got a few right. One of them was that I thought the New York Giants would be a much more balanced offense, and by doing so, I thought they'd be better in the time of possession. Well, over the last 6, They have been. They've actually been plus in the time of possession over the last 6 contests. For the year, they still rank 24th, but that is up from their previous 5 years, in which they've been no better than 27 and consistently ranked at the bottom of the league. And I think it's only trending up. The reason being, if you run the ball at the clip that they are, it's only going to get better. Even with Saquon Barkley on this team, the New York Giants did not run the ball frequently. Over the last 2 years combined, the New York Giants, I think, were 30th and 32nd in run frequency at about 35%. That number is trending up, and the big reason it's trending up is because the offensive line is starting to mature and get better, and by doing so, it's cutting down on the turnovers. The Giants, over the last 6 games, have turned the ball over 8 times, and you could even look at it even further and say that it is, in actuality, is kind of less. Daniel Jones turned the ball over on basically what equated to a Hail Mary the last play of the game against the Eagles after Evan Ingram dropped the pass and the Giants allowed him to score a touchdown. In addition to that, he threw an interception on the last play of the game against the Rams. The Giants have been much better in terms of holding on to the football, whether it's fumbling or whether it's, throwing interceptions. Last year, Jones had 11 fumbles lost. This year, he's only lost 2 in only 3 less starts. 9 starts compared to 12 last year. Again, a major reason for that. Yes, he's improved in holding on to the football, but he's also not dropping back to passes frequently because they've been able to establish a run. They're running the ball on average 5 more times a contest. That is huge. In comparison to the previous 19 games. That's 5 less times a game that Daniel Jones has the ability to fumble it. So I think all of that is why the New York Giants have improved, and I think it's why they've stayed in these football games. Their plus-minus over the last 6 games against good teams is -10. Their plus-minus over the previous 19 games is -150. They've been much more competitive against good teams, and it's because they've had an identity. They've been a balanced offense that's been able to run the ball. They've been able to set the tone, and it's given the New York Giants better opportunities on 3rd and 2nd down, making it 2nd and 3rd and manageable, and a much more unpredictable offense. And if the New York Giants are going to win this football game, they're going to need to continue that identity. And it's not going to be that easy against this Philadelphia Eagles team. They have a very strong interior defensive front. But I will say, if you remember back to that game, if you take away the Daniel Jones run, and I'm not looking at the stats, down the stretch, the New York Giants were able to get that run going on that last drive before they hit Evan Ingram, before Evan Ingram dropped that ball. But they were able to run there on that last drive, and I do think the New York Giants are going to make it they're gonna do everything they can in their power to try to establish the run up at the point of attack, and they're gonna do the same thing on defense. That's been the identity of this team: establish the run, stop the run, limit the turnovers, and that's exactly what they've done over these last 6 games. They are a different football team. Maybe the record may not indicate it, but they are a much different football team than they've been over the previous 19 contests, and if you go back to last year, over the past 35 contests. This is a team week in and week out, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get effort, you're going to get a balanced offense, and you're going to get a team that competes in the trenches. I'm not going to tell you they're going to win every week in the trenches, but they're not going to go out there and they're not going to get embarrassed. You've seen Andrew Thomas get better progressively over the course of the weeks, and I expect that to only continue and get better going into this Philadelphia Eagles game. I'm not telling you this is an easy win against Philadelphia. I'm not guaranteeing it. But I definitely think it's a team we can compete against. And I definitely think the New York Giants are trending upwards. And the main reason they are is because they have an identity. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.